Rescue worker pulls over and risks everything to try and save a desperate animal. Our dedication to our pets can be, at times, astounding. In fact, most pet owners would probably journey to the metaphorical ends of the earth to rescue their fur baby if it was in trouble. Still, not many would risk life and limb for an animal they didn't know. Then again, not too many people are like one English superhero who found an animal lying alongside the road in rural England. What he did would likely forever go down as one of the ultimate acts of dedication to any animal, anywhere. As the founder of Surrey-based charity Wildlife Aid, Simon Cowell had faced just about any danger nature could offer while rescuing a host of different species. Yet one recent rescue would stick with him far longer than the others. It was December 2015 when an unnamed driver spotted a wounded deer lying motionless on a stretch of road flanked by dense forest. Worried, the driver phoned Wildlife Aid, and Simon himself responded to the call. One car had stopped ahead of the deer and another behind to help prevent traffic from getting too close to the frightened animal. When Simon arrived at the scene, he expected it would be another day at the office, but he couldn't have been more wrong. Simon pulled over and approached the deer, whispering to her in a soothing tone. "All right, darling," he said. "All right, sweetheart. What's the matter? Hey." Then he kneeled down beside the deer and examined the damage. Clearly the victim of a speeding car, the poor deer was shaken, scared, and she sported a nasty gash above her eye. Simon silently noted that a veterinarian would need to stitch it closed. The deer pressed her snout into Simon's knee, leaving a crimson streak right on his jeans. She'd need all the help Wildlife Aid had to offer, and she needed it quick, or else she wouldn't survive her injuries. With his bare hands and all of his strength, Simon scooped up the deer into his arms and held her close to his chest like a parent might hold their frightened child. Besides her injuries, there was another reason why Simon needed to act so quickly. "Deer are very nervous and don't cope well with being handled," Simon said before adding that all wild animals can suffer from capture myopathy. That was a stress-related disease that killed muscle tissue with lactic acid buildup. With no time to waste, Simon rushed the deer to his rescue facility. Gently placing a towel over the deer's head so she wouldn't be spooked by unfamiliar surroundings, Wildlife Aid's veterinarian, Dr. Emma Lorette, set down the hurting creature on a hay-padded floor. It was time to get to work before it was too late for this deer. Right away, Dr. Lorette had good news. The deer's skull was not broken. She stitched up the 3 wounds, cleaned the blood, and gave the deer a painkiller. Unfortunately, Simon and his team would face an even bigger challenge. The deer might have been all patched up, but would she be able to return to her life of frolicking and grazing? Simon brought her right back to where he'd first found her, with the hopes that, after her nerves settled down, the deer would bound straight to her family. "We just have to pray that she'll stand for us," Simon said as he and the other rescue worker brought the deer into the woods alongside the road. He pet her softly and whispered some words of encouragement. "Listen to me," he said. "It's all over." However, Simon couldn't just leave the deer in the shrubs and call it a job well done. "If she puts her head back," he said, "this is a sign she's still giving up on life." So before he could leave, he anxiously waited for the deer's signal. In a heartbreaking moment, the deer's head flopped backwards. That was it. She'd given up. The trauma and pain of the car crash was too much for her to fight on. Simon's rescue, it appeared, had all been for nothing. Or had it? Simon wasn't the type to give up on any animal. Putting her head forward, he said as he tried to help the poor deer stand up, "Hopefully, we'll refocus her effort to live." But would Simon's coaxing work? The deer stumbled and staggered as Simon lifted her to her feet. It seemed like he was so determined to see this deer live, he'd have spent his own life carrying her if he needed to. "I know you're hurt. I know you're bruised," he told her, "but you can do it." Finally, after plenty of coaxing, the deer stood on 4 wobbly legs. "It was heartbreaking to watch her struggle to stay up," Simon said. "This is the most worrying time for us because we never know if we've done the right thing or the wrong thing. I'm just convinced that after years and years of doing this, this is the right thing for this deer," said Simon. She's right on the verge of making it or collapsing. Sadly, once more, the deer collapsed. Perhaps a less stubborn rescue worker would have admitted defeat right then and there. Perhaps he or she would have brought the deer back to the facilities, or left her to her fate in the woods. But not Simon. Instead, he picked her up and carried her deeper into the woods. She needed more time to pull her thoughts together, Simon said. She probably had a massive headache from her collision with the car. Deeper in the woods, he guided the deer, supporting her steps. Would this be enough to get her out on her own? Finally, the deer's ears perked up. She was alert and standing on her own. The sight brought Simon to tears. "Go on, sweetheart," he called after her. "Go on, go away." You could hear the pained joy in his voice. After all that work, the deer stood a chance. For some time, Simon watched the little deer disappear into the dense woods. "It wrecked me," Simon said, his eyes wet with tears. "You never know whether you've done the right thing or the wrong thing. It's beautiful and horrible." In his lifetime, Simon had had his arm bitten by a hedgehog, his throat nearly sliced by a buck's antler, and his scalp shredded by owl talons. But perhaps nothing would affect him as deeply as the wounded deer who decided life was worth living. You can see firsthand just how passionate Simon was about this random highway deer. If we all cared about and fought for animals the way he did for her, there's no doubt the world would be a better place. Seeing the lengths Simon went for a wounded deer was a remarkable and touching experience. Not many people would have shown that deer the same compassion as this special rescue worker.